Yeah, there's this interesting concept called the arrival fallacy, which is like we make these big goals of like, I want to win the world championships. And when you actually do that and win the world championships, you actually go into this huge like phase of depression because you don't know what to do after you've accomplished that big goal. And it's like this huge eye-opening experience of it's not the goal of like winning the world championships that actually makes us happy. It's the process of getting there, the everyday grind. I find myself thinking about that a lot of like people don't realize how enjoyable that process is of just grinding it out every day. Having those goals is definitely good. You need those, but winning races isn't the end all be all for sure.
Drew Dillman is a professional cyclist who until now has focused on cyclocross and criterium racing. In recent months, however, Drew has aimed for the fences like Babe Ruth. He's calling his shots and hyping his plans to catapult to the forefront of the Lifetime Grand Prix Mixed Terrain Series and plans to become a gravel icon. Drew is a co-host of the Matchbox and Bonk Bros podcasts and co-founder of Ignition Coach Co., a coaching company for endurance athletes. Drew races for the Texas Roadhouse team on the road and is a longtime YouTube creator focused on taking viewers inside the nuanced world of professional criterium and cyclocross racing. Learn more about Ignition Coach Co. and Drew on Instagram at Dizzle_Dillman. Choose the Hard Way is the podcast about how hard things build stronger humans who have more fun. Please help more people find this podcast. To do that, just hit subscribe and rate the show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and share this episode with your favorite friend. Go to choosethehardway.com to sign up for the newsletter, and if there's someone you think would make a great guest, DM me at hardwaypod or send an email to choosethehardway@gmail.com. As always, you can find those links in the show notes. Tell me a little bit about how you broke your wrist.
We're going to start right there, right in the fire.
Yeah, let's jump in, man. Like, let's see your wrists. Hold on. Are they healed? Like, what have we got?
I just got some KT tape on it to help when I ride. I got the brace off 2 weeks ago. The finger is still like, that's all the movement. I can't straighten it. But I'm working on it. I actually have this thing coming in the mail today called a joint jack. It looks like a torture device. It like is flat here, and then it has this thing that compresses it, and I twist it, and it just like straightens it out. I'm supposed to wear it when I sleep to stretch that tendon out. But yeah, it happened at the infamous Blue Dome crit at Tulsa, which is I think pretty widely known as one of the most dangerous crits in the world. In fact, I did a YouTube video, and that's what I titled it, and it got a lot of hits. But I do think that that's a pretty accurate, I don't think that partially that's clickbait, but partially that's pretty true. And most of the guys who do the race who have crashed in it would agree that there's something about that race that is, there's a lot of crashes. And so I got caught up in one of those crashes, and at some point, flying through the air, either my bike hit the ground or my hand hit the ground or a bike or something. But I didn't get any scratches. Like I think I had one little scuff on my knee. But other than that, like no blood, no bruising, no road rash, not even a tear in my kit, but I have a broken wrist. So I would take the road rash and all that stuff over a broken wrist, because the bone I broke, the scaphoid, takes a really long time to heal because it gets really poor blood supply. So they went in and put a screw in a week after I crashed. And then I was in a brace for, I think, 7 weeks after that. And then I finally got the brace off 2 weeks ago. So I've been ramping up the training again for a fall comeback.
Some feedback I received from my mom was that sometimes we talk about things on this podcast that she specifically doesn't know what we're talking about. So Mom, this is for you.
Okay.
I know that criterium racing, very popular form of bike racing here in America, but for anyone who's listening who doesn't know what a crit is, it is a multi-lap race on a short circuit. They're typically in city centers. Sometimes they're in office parks. That's a popular thing in Southern California. And sometimes it's a square loop. So you are Yeah, so sometimes the route will have like 4 right-hand turns. Sometimes it'll be a figure 8. Sometimes, like the Snake Alley criterium that we might talk about today, it might have a cobblestone section, but it's typically a relatively short circuit with a lot of turns. People are moving at a high speed, and often, Drew, in the races that you're racing in, what typically there'll be 100 plus riders. Is that about right?
Yep. Close to, yeah, Tulsa for sure. That for some reason that one attracts a lot of
Yeah.
people. Yeah, I think there was over 100 people at the start of that race. Definitely not 100 at the finish, but yeah, it started with 100.
Yeah. And when
Yeah,
you
it's
broke your scaphoid, did you land on other human beings, or did you land? What was your
uh,
landing like?
like I mean, I did the video like frame by frame. So I tried, like I tried to slow down as much as possible, but it was with 8 laps to go, so the speed's already pretty hot. So I tried to slow down as much as possible. So slamming on my brakes, and then I think I ran into the person in front of me. So then I ended up like cowboying the top of I was on top of my stem. So I was on the front of the bike, and so eventually I went over the bike, and the bike went on top of me. But then in front of me was, and this is from my memory, so not from the video, but I just remember like running into the back of the person in front
Right.
of me and like trying to like hold on to their back. Just instinct, I guess, like to put out my arm. And I was trying to, so I ended up running into somebody. And then after it was all said and done, I ended up on the very bottom of everything. So at that point, I knew something was wrong with my hand and I couldn't get the bikes off of me. I think there were 2 bikes on top of me, mine and some other ones. And so I was sitting there for maybe 30 seconds or so before somebody came over and took the bikes off of me because I couldn't get up. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened. I mean, I was on the ground, but yeah, like I said, I didn't get scratched. So I don't know how that happened, but
Did you drive yourself to the hospital, or did you one of your buddies take you?
actually, my wife was there, which was a good thing, but she also, yeah, like, she hates that part of crit racing, especially crit racing. So when she
Yeah.
didn't see me come around 2 laps, she's like sprinting to the medic tent. And so she gets to the medic tent. And at that point, I didn't know I'd broken my wrist. I just knew that my finger was dislocated because it was all kinds of crooked. And so I had already found some teammates and they walked me over to the medic tent. And this is funny. The guy at the medic tent, I don't know if this guy was legit or not. He had a polo on. That's all I know. I don't know his name or anything. And I walk up and I just hold my hand up and say, I messed up my finger. And without saying anything, he just reaches for my hand and pops the thing back into place. Like no paperwork,
Whoa.
no explanation. I paused him for like 1 second and was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you about to do this? He's like, yeah, we're doing it. And he just starts yanking on it. And he yanks on it for like 5 seconds and nothing happens. And then he's like, maybe it's broken. And then he just starts yanking on it again. And then it pops back into place. And then I almost pass out. And then my wife gets there and we go to the car. And I couldn't do anything that night because it's a night race. So at that point, it's like 10 p.m. So we went back to the host house. And like I said, I didn't know my wrist was broken. So I thought, oh, the guy put my finger back into place. It'll be fine. I'll race tomorrow. Like, positivity. And so the first thing the next morning, I went to go get an x-ray on my wrist because it was pretty swollen at that point. And that was when I found out it was broken.
Wow. It's too bad you didn't have a body cam with you as this was happening. That sounds like pretty compelling content.
Yeah, I know. My teammate was right there, and Kyle was grabbing his phone to record the popping of it popping back into place. But the guy did it so fast, Kyle didn't even like get his phone out in time. But in hindsight, I'm like,
That's wild.
yeah, you're so right. Like that would have been such good content. But I did have a camera on my bike, but you can't. It's just like running into the person in front of me, so you can't really tell much.
What a thrill.
Yeah.
So that injury is the same injury that Tadej Pogačar had in late April, and then 2 months later he's racing the Tour de France. So what insights do you have about him doing what he did 2 months after that injury?
Yeah. Um, was it 2 months? Because that'd be like, yeah, I don't,
Yeah, I just looked it up.
that's impressive.
Yeah, he broke it on April 23rd, and then he was back at the tour more or less July 1st. So yeah, about
Okay.
eight,
Yeah.
9 weeks.
Yeah, that's impressive. He probably has a lot more dedication and motivation in the form of probably money from his team to keep training. So I'm sure he was doing a lot more on the trainer than I was when I was healing to stay in shape. You know, when you're a two-time Tour de France winner, I think he's probably pretty motivated. He knew that was coming up. Whereas me, it was like I knew that was probably the end of the season as far as crits go, but I am super motivated now to get into the fall and do some gravel racing. But yeah, it's definitely impressive because I'm sure I mean, unless I don't think there's any like I don't think his bones heal faster than mine. Like, you know what I mean? Like if it was the same bone, it's hard to tell if it was the same break, but mine was just a split down the middle and they screwed it back together. And I imagine his was similar. I think he had to have a screw in it. He did get his screw in a week earlier
Yeah,
than me. I think he got the screw in the same day he crashed, whereas I had to wait a week. So that probably helped speed it
right.
up a little bit, but no, definitely impressive.
What's it like to be back on the bike? How does it feel?
Oh, like awesome. I mean, uh, the day after I had already ridden a few times outside before the doc had like given me the clear, and I was still wearing my brace for all the other times. I was just taking it off to go for rides here and there, but just like out on country roads, no traffic, smooth roads, so I wasn't too worried about it. And then once I did get the clear to ride, the very next day, me and my wife drove to. Yeah. The very next day, me and my wife drove to Iowa to do Ragbri. So then I was like doing 80, 90-mile rides for the next couple of days. And that was obviously like the perfect intro back to riding because Ragbri is just like chill riding across the state of Iowa. And it's just a fun time. But now I'm like full tilt focused on uh, just some big gravel races for the fall to try to, I don't know, take advantage of people who are probably overtrained and overraced, and I'm under raced. So I'm like super motivated. So I'm hoping that I can, you know, take that into my own hands and get some results this fall.
I definitely want to talk. I want to talk Ragbri, but before we jump into that, I'd love to hear your take on the state of criterium racing in
Mm,
America today. Definitely a hot topic, and criterium racing. It is fun to watch. It's fun to participate in. It's dangerous. It
yeah.
also, especially like on streaming or on TV, it's something that feels like it should be super compelling. Yet when you have that many people on a course, it's pretty hard to catch all of the nuance of what's happening with
Hmm.
that without having. I mean, if they could stream GoPro footage or point of view footage from within the race, that would be one thing. But just watching a mass of riders with static cameras or even with drones, it's pretty hard to follow what's going on. So, what do
Right.
you think? Like, where are we at with criterium racing in America, and like, where is it headed?
Um, I think it's pretty good. You know, like when this is like, I didn't do a lot of the big crits this year. I only did Athens and Tulsa, and I only did one third of Tulsa. But from the races that
Right.
I went to, when you're there, and again, this could just be the like excitement of being at a race. When you're at the race, it feels like it's thriving. You know what I mean? Like people are the sides of the course are lined with people, and they're all cheering, and the announcers are going nuts, and the towns are super excited to have us there. And even when I go back and watch the streams, like what they're doing with the drone footage now is pretty sweet. You know, like they finally figured out how to do like live drone footage, which is like pretty wicked awesome. I remember watching Sunny King, and they were like, the drone was like right there over the peloton, and as they were turning, the drone is turning with them. And I mean, I think that kind of ups the streaming quite a bit, makes it a lot more exciting, and you can see a little bit more of like what's happening rather than a stationary camera in the turns. So I mean, it's definitely, I wouldn't say it's growing, but it's definitely not dying. I mean, I think it's still pretty exciting stuff. It is kind of curious. The whole NCL thing is pretty. Uh, I feel like it's just a huge question mark right now. They've only had one race. There's all this hype and all this talk, and the two teams are racing. Like those two teams have been racing all year. But as far as the series goes,
Right.
it was all this hype. They've only done one race. They've had to reschedule another race. They've had to cancel another race. There's a huge question mark of whether it's even going to exist next year. I mean, it's exciting and it's cool, but I don't know how sustainable that is. Like, why try to why try to just go over and above? Why don't you just create a really good series and make it steady instead of just something like over the top? And it seemed like they tried to go for the over the top, and I just don't know how long that's going to last. But I've never been to one. The team
It
went
was
to the first one,
right.
but I didn't go because it was too early in the
Yeah.
year. And they all said it was awesome. I mean, like when they came back, they're like, "Oh, it's so amazing," and all this. But from my opinion, watching the live stream, you've got the two NCL teams, and it's point based. By the end of the race, the two NCL teams
Right.
have like 150 and 130 points, and Roadhouse was in third with 20 points. So it looks, just from a perspective standpoint, it looks like there's two pro teams and a bunch of chumps. Even we looked like chumps out there. And so it's like, why aren't the legions and the ACCs and the echelons, like where are all the fast people at that race if it's one of the big series? And I mean, I know that those teams opted not to go, but it's unfortunate that that's how it played out, because it's just a weird dynamic, like that there aren't big teams at those races. But can't control what other people do, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you noted, your criterium season has kind of ended. You hit a few of the major crits, but not all of them. I caught Littleton, I think, was this past weekend, and the World Championships were also last weekend. It was interesting to see. I think Legion, and again, if you're not familiar with criterium racing and you're listening, Legion is the Legion of Los Angeles is the best team in the United States at criterium racing. I think they went 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 9 at Littleton.
Probably.
And right, something like that. I think they had 6 of the top 10 spots, which that's good for them. And just doesn't seem highly competitive relative to the other people in the race. And then watching the World Championships on Sunday on a city center course that's a circuit race, not a criterium, with 50 turns. World Tour pros were saying this is, I mean, and granted, I think they'd ridden 100 plus miles before they went on to the finishing circuit. But the pros were saying, Pogača, wow, they were saying, hey, this is actually the hardest bike race I've ever done. And visually, it was incredibly compelling, thrilling racing. And they were able to create separation that couldn't be closed because there were 50 turns on that short circuit in the city center. Granted, it's much harder to get that type of closure in a city center. And there did used to be some races like that in the United States. Like there was the San Francisco Grand Prix, for example, in the early to mid 2000s. But I'm curious if that might actually become a more viable form of racing.
Talking about like a downtown circuit race.
Yeah. I mean,
cool.
I know it's really, really hard to put on because you have to shut down a downtown, which is almost impossible to do from a permitting point of view. But seeing Glasgow Worlds, which on paper, I mean, prior to the race, people were like, really? Like all these irregular road surfaces, even watching the race, there were manhole covers all over the place. They were going from cobblestones to bad pavement. There were, it was a very complex, poorly surfaced course, but the racing was incredible,
I'd be down for that. That'd be cool. You're talking about I'm assuming it would be longer too, hopefully. I'm more keen on longer races, but yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I've never even thought of that. It is way easier to close off like one or two blocks of a street though,
Oh yeah, yeah, totally.
So easy.
Yeah, I don't have to actually put on the races. I'm just
Right.
a fan and someone who follows the sport, right? So I don't have a magic wand, and I can only imagine how difficult it would be to shut off the downtown in a major metro area. And I think that's one of the many reasons criteriums have been the most popular form of bike racing in America, because like, yeah, you can just go to an office park in Dominguez Hills in Southern California where nothing's happening on a weekend. It's relatively easy to permit it. That's what Chris Lotz at CBR has been doing for a couple of decades now. And as a participant, they're great fun races. And, from a permitting point of view, relatively easy to do probably. But
Right.
just like at a more macro level, why has bike racing become the center of your life? You're a coach, you're a pro athlete, you're a full spectrum bike racer across all these disciplines. You pop in and out of the bonk bros, of course. What's so interesting about cycling to you?
I mean, to go with the title of the podcast, it's hard, but it's fun. And I sucked at all the other sports that exist. So this is what I ended up on. I mean, I got into cycling originally because my mom worked at a bike shop. She was an accountant at a local bike shop. So the mechanics from the bike shop, ended up taking me out mountain biking when I was like 10 or 11 years old, and just fell in love with it. I mean, I started out mountain biking for the first couple of years and just stuck to that. I didn't even know cyclocross existed, and I thought road was the lamest thing in the world. And like 15 years later, I'd barely touched my mountain bike, and I'm like full roadie now. But yeah, I mean, I think I just liked that I could do it whenever I wanted to, and over the years, I've gotten to go to a lot of places, and it turns out I'm not too bad at it. So it's opened up a lot of doors, being able to race in college and getting on teams and getting sponsorships, and not to mention all the friends and teammates over the years, and now even a career. So in the grand scheme of things, I mean, yeah, a lot of my life does kind of revolve around cycling, but I kind of love that. I love talking about bikes. I love talking about bike racing. Obviously on the Bonk Bros, it's like all we do is talk about bike stuff, maybe less about the tires and stuff. But when we're talking about bike racing, I'm all about that. I've never been like that. There's people who are like way into the gear, and I've never really been about the gear. I love new bike day and new kit day, but that doesn't even compare to like race day. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I like, especially now that I'm older, I like the, just the long distance, getting out and doing those long gravel races. I don't do as many of them. I might be doing more and more of them. But I don't know. There's something really appealing about that, of like, it doesn't have, a crit race is very strategic. Like a lot of people say, it's like a 30-mile-per-hour chess game. And maybe that's true, but in a gravel race, it's like the dumbest race there is. It's like, you don't have to turn your brain on the whole time. You just sit in the front group and you stay there for as long as possible. And if you're good, you'll look around at one point and there will only be 5 dudes left. And then you have to figure out how to beat the other 5 dudes. And that to me is like a lot more gratifying, because I spend a buttload of time training, a lot more than I think some of my crit competitors do. And so when I show up to a gravel race and I actually get to show that fitness off, whereas in a crit, like maybe I crash or maybe I don't have a good sprint or something, so that fitness doesn't always show. Yeah, I don't know. I want to use my fitness more in racing, and I think the gravel stuff is probably where that's going to happen. Or, I mean, if there was more road racing, I'd do more road racing, but the road racing scene in the US is pretty dead right now. So it's like, you can either do crits or you can do gravel racing. Cyclocross is kind of fizzling out as well.
And with gravel, where have you dabbled? How deep are you?
Well, I got third one time at the Mid-South, if you haven't heard. No, I'm just kidding. They make fun of me all the time because that's like my one good result. I've done the Mid-South a bunch of times because it fits really well, even with a crit calendar, because it's early in the season. So it's kind of before the crits start. So I've done that quite a bit. I've done BWR California a few times. I did the DK 200, but I only did 175, pulled the plug. which was kind of embarrassing. I could have probably like taken a nap and still finished, but for some reason I quit. That's about it, really. Yeah, but I'm hoping to do this
Why did you quit?
fall. My right leg stopped like moving. Like I was
Mm.
pedaling and then it just locked up. And I don't usually cramp, and I'm assuming that was like a full lockup kind of cramp. And so when that happened a couple times, and I was like looking at my leg, and my brain was saying like, "Come on, buddy, you got to keep spinning," but it like wouldn't pedal for a couple seconds. Eventually, that was happening so often that I was like, "This isn't worth it." And I was already like in a pretty deep, dark spot at that point. Like I had already quit, and then Amanda Nauman, my teammate, was like, "You can't quit. You have to keep going." So then I kept going and only went like another 20 miles, and then I quit again. Was like, "Yeah, no, I'm actually quitting this time." So yeah, I definitely want to go back to that and get some redemption at that race.
Because that was so much fun.
Yeah, so much fun. I think I was naive. I think I was naive and unprepared that year, because that was the year I got third at the Mid South, and the Mid South is only 100 miles, and there wasn't very thick competition at that race. So I think I had one good gravel result at the Mid South, and then I went to the Unbound thinking, "Oh, I'm a gravel pro, and I could probably get top 10." And it's like a whole nother beast. And I think I was just totally naive to how hard that race actually is. And so I raced way too hard the first 60 miles and then paid for it.
So how serious are you about trying to get into the Lifetime Grand Prix next year?
Pretty serious. The rest of this year, I'm going to try. I think I'm going to try to do the rest of the BWR series to qualify for the. I did BWR California this spring before the injury and did decent. I think I could have done a lot better had I raced it differently. And then, so if I do the rest of the BWR series, there's 3 more races, I can qualify for the quadruple crown. And so maybe if I do well in the next 3 series, or 3 races, I can maybe end up on the podium for the overall for that series. And then I'm going to go to Big Sugar and do that, because that's like the series finale. So really, I'm putting all my chips into that basket, because if I can do really well at Big Sugar and beat like all of the Lifetime athletes and prove to them that I should be in the series, I feel like that would be like the ticket in for next year. Because I don't think I'm popular enough for them to know who I am off of race, like without that. So maybe, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully getting a really good result there would put me on the map. And I got to beat Dillman.
Well, once you get the hard way bump, I mean, yeah, I think you're in. Yeah, you beat Dillman as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you have raced BWR differently? What happened and what would you have done differently?
I like over psyched myself out about the very first climb. There's like a climb 2 or 3 miles into the course, and it's a paved climb, and all the pros for some reason go super hard up this climb. And when I did that race back in like 2018, at like the halfway point of the race, there was still like 50 dudes in the race. I remember rolling through a town and looking around, and it was like a full peloton of riders. And that was well into the race. So I was thinking, I could probably sag this climb and it'll all come back together, and I will have saved some matches for later in the race, because I was so much more focused on the twin peak or double peak or whatever it's called at the end of the race, because that's like the race deciding moment. So I was like, I'll let all these goofballs go really hard on the first climb. It'll all come back together and I will have like saved some matches. However, it just didn't come back together. So I was in the second group and I could tell it wasn't coming back together. So I tried to like jump across, but never got there. Ended up missing a turn, which didn't cost me too much, but I did put me behind a bunch of slower riders on a single track section. So I lost more time there. And then eventually I synced up with Lance Haydet, who had a flat tire. So me and him kind of grinded out. Mainly he grinded it out, and I stayed behind him for like 60 or 80 miles or something like that. But we rode together for a really long time. He finished like he ended up finishing 10th, which is amazing. And then I ended up finishing 18th. But if I had just put myself in that front group, I think I could have stayed there for most of the day. And then, just being protected by the group would have saved a lot of energy. But because I didn't do that on that first climb, it was just me and Lance all day. So I'm taking on way more wind and spending way more energy to try to catch up.
So what's your game plan heading into the gravel races that are on your calendar for the rest of the season? Are you going to just try to race from the front the whole time?
Oh yeah. 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 Just turn the brain off and stay in the front group for as long as possible. I mean, I'm confident enough in my fitness, I think, I think the legs are there to like stay there for a long time. It's just a matter of when it gets hard enough late in the race is when the race is determined. And hopefully I'm there. That's probably when I'm going to get dropped, but hopefully I'm there when that starts to happen. Like when the bombs start to drop. But I feel good enough about my fitness to where I think I can stay in that front group for a long time, even if there is a hard climb in the first 5 miles. But yeah, definitely just somebody had told me after that race that, yeah, in a race like that, when there's that much firepower, you've got to stay in that front group. Cause that front group is going to roll so much faster than the rest of the race because of the firepower that's there. So that made a lot of sense. I wish somebody had told me that before that race.
And do you coach yourself or do you have another coach you?
Not that the Bonk Bros coach me collectively. I coach myself.
I know they give you a lot of feedback. Yeah.
Yeah. I coach myself pretty much. My schedule is really weird because my wife is a part-time nurse. So she works 2 days, which are pretty random every week. She can make it to where she can schedule off enough to where we can make sure she doesn't work when I travel for racing. But during the week, it's like 1 week she works these 2 days, the next week, these 2 days. So my schedule is kind of dependent on her schedule. Plus we have a 2-year-old. And so my schedule, like every week, is always kind of getting juggled around. But I've kind of figured it out and I think I'm in a good spot. And unlike most, I don't know. Maybe this I don't want to sound too like cocky but unlike a lot of other cyclists, I think I have a pretty good gauge on not overtraining. I think that's the biggest thing when you coach yourself is you bury yourself too much. If you're really motivated, you think, oh, I just need to train more and more and more. And I'm always thinking that, but I'm also very aware of just recovery and not being okay with skipping workouts because I don't feel good or whatever. So I think I do a pretty good job of like not burning myself out.
When you look at an athlete like Keegan Swenson, I've had Keegan on here. I've had Kristen Ligon on here. Of course, I've had the world famous Dylan Johnson, 47 millimeter Pathfinders on the show. But with Keegan in particular, just his training, the volume is totally insane. And I think a lot of people inside and outside of gravel look at that and think, hey, if that works for Keegan, the way forward for me must be I need to go do 30-hour weeks. What do you think? Is
Keegan's
infinity the answer when it comes to training volume?
Yeah, but he's got the foundation to build that off of. If you look at what he was doing in college 10 years ago, he was probably doing what I'm doing now in college 10 years ago. So he's built up the training history to be able to do that. What a lot of people make the mistake of is they try to do that without that training history. You can't just jump from 15 hours to 30 hours in 1 year. He's been building that up for over a decade. So it makes sense that now he's gotten to this level. You can't neglect the last 10 or 15 years of his career and just think, oh, he's doing 30 hours. That's what you got to do. He did 15 and then he did 17 and then he did 20. And now he's up to that 30 hours a week mark or whatever it is. I don't know. But, and I mean, I can see that in my own career. Like even in the last couple of years, it's been 17 and 19. And this year was like the first year where I'm consistently getting over 20 hours a week and I'm not dying from it, So it just takes time. Cycling is one of those sports where like you can make a lot of big improvements the first year or the first 2 years. But then after that, it's just like you got to be committed for the long haul. Like 10 years of just putting your head down and training, and maybe nothing exciting happens for a really long time. But if you're committed to it, I think in the grand scheme of things, you'll eventually start to reap the rewards of all that training. At least that's what I hope.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your RAGBRAI experience. What got you interested in doing RAGBRAI?
I did the full thing in 2018, but my roommate all throughout college is from Iowa, and now he lives in Des Moines. So that's the main reason is I get to go hang out with one of my best buds, and he lives in Des Moines now. So CJ worked. It just so happened that she worked Monday, Tuesday that week, a couple weeks ago, and I realized that about a week before. And was like, so I called up my buddy and was like, yo, is there still room for us to do RAGBRAI? Because it's like an ongoing thing. Like he's texting me and telling me throughout the year, like, are you going to come to RAGBRAI? And usually I'm like, I don't know, man, like with racing and the 2-year-old. But it was kind of like everything fell into place where we were able to find a sitter for the kid for 4 days. And then me and my wife were able to go up there and do the second half of RAGBRAI. And it happened to be that RAGBRAI was going through their town. So we just met them at their house and then finished the second half of RAGBRAI with them. So like all the pieces really fell into place. But we did it back in 2018, and that was before we had a kid. We had just gotten married. And we had kind of said that every 2 years, that was going to be like our college reunion of all of our friends from the cycling team at Marion. So we did it in 2018. We had like a dozen of us all kind of show up, and we did the whole week, all of us, and it was super fun. But that kind of fell through because of COVID. So we haven't quite gotten it started up, we haven't quite, it wasn't what it was in 2018 as far as the whole college reunion thing. But yeah, it was fun to go up there and just hang out with that buddy and just have a good time. It was fun.
Yeah, and for anyone listening who doesn't know what RAGBRAI is, it's the Register's annual Great Bicycle Ride across Iowa. It's a ride that takes place every year, goes from, is it the Missouri River in the west to the Mississippi in the east?
Totally don't know. I dipped my tire.
We don't know. Yeah, you dip your tire in a river I know the one on the east side, I believe, is the Mississippi. Wow,
yeah, I think that's right.
I'm gonna have to look at a map after this. But you go from one side of Iowa to the other side. There's usually about 10,000 people officially who do the ride. Unofficially, who knows? And how did you do it? Were you bike packing? Like, were you hopscotching? Was somebody driving ahead with your gear?
Yeah, we had so my buddy Vance, his little brother was driving the car with all of our bags in it. So he was meeting us, and then they were able to find host housing for most of the nights, or at least the 2 nights that we were there, or the 3 nights were there, we did host housing. I think a couple of the nights they had camped before, but it's like they know some people in the town, and they're like, oh yeah, you can set up a tent in our backyard. And then some people are like, oh yeah, you can sleep in our basement. Right. And so we just bring air mattresses and sleep in people's basements is basically
luxury. Yeah, I did it in 2003. I wrote an article about it for Bicycling Magazine. I did the whole thing that time, and then I also did it in 2008. But same thing. Someone from our group would drive ahead and knock on somebody's door. You camp in their yard. It's probably not a lot of experiences like that left in America or the world anymore, right, where you can just do that. And at that time, there were a lot of iconic like food truck stops along the route. Yeah. Were there any of note that you tried to hit up every day?
There's like a famous pork chop guy, like Mr. Pork. I think it's just called Mr. Pork Chop. Yeah. So you stop and get your pork chop on the side of the road. I think there's like I think everything has bacon on it. You go to every single food stand and it's like, this has bacon, this has bacon. Like, and it's like it's like the last food that I would want to eat in the middle of a bike ride. And that's what you have to eat is like ribeye steaks and just like terrible food. But there was a PB&J station. And so one day I got a PB&J. But they did have a PB&J with bacon option for those. Yeah.
Gotta have it. Maybe
Yeah.
some
And then
marshmallow
obviously
fluff.
I think beer. I think beer is probably the number one consumed beverage for the whole week. I bet there's people who like don't even drink water. They just wake up and put beer in their bottles. I think that's the ragbri way.
That's possible. What's the most interesting thing that you saw at Ragbri? Because typically there's no shortage of interesting things happening along the route.
Oh, I was only there for 3 days. One of the days was super hot, so it was pretty cool that all the fire departments were pretty cool about like turning on huge like water sprayers. A couple of them had like swimming pools that they had set up, and like they're like basically portable. It was like a portable swimming pool that they put together pipes, and then with strings and stuff, it was holding itself up, but it had like cold water in it, and they just filled it up with the fire hydrant. So that was pretty cool. Um, there was a lot of little kids, like a lot of little kids. I'm thinking a lot of them probably weren't riding the whole way. I think they just go from like maybe they live in this town and they ride to the next town. But it was pretty cool to see a bunch of little kids out there. Yeah, I didn't see anything like super crazy. The cops were really cool. Like the police have to like come through town and like kind of get people along. So I think there's cutoff times of when the bars and stuff can stop selling alcohol because they're like, you're like, we have to, it's like the police have to keep the people going because otherwise people would probably sit there at the bar and then it's like, oh, we have 50 more miles to ride and it's 8 p.m. And so then you have like people riding in the dark. So they try to prevent that by like getting them to go along. But there's all these different teams, like team Love Shack and team Drunken Donuts or whatever. It's like all these goofy teams are out there riding. So the cops actually had bracelets and they were team Buzzkill, and they were handing out bracelets to all the people that they were team Buzzkill. So they were like, they're doing their job, but they're actually like, it seemed like they enjoyed it. A lot of them had like big speakers, which is pretty cool. Like every it's like a pretty legit event. Like every crossing that we went through, police are standing there stopping traffic. And you're talking 80, 90-mile days, like hundreds of street crossings and hundreds of police officers stopping traffic for this ride. So I thought that was pretty cool. There are some gravel races that don't even have that. Like big gravel races where the traffic is just right there in the middle of the race and you might get hit by a car. But Ragbri is like they got police officers on every single intersection. It's pretty cool.
It's a pretty incredible event. I'd have to say it's one of my favorite bike experiences I've ever had. I'd like to go back. And I think for anybody who's listening, who's looking for something to do besides go race your bike somewhere or whatever else you might want to do as an athlete, Ragbri is incredible. I think it's something to put on the list of things to experience in your lifetime in one way or another.
I agree.
Hopefully on a bike.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
What so as you kind of look forward, Drew, we've talked a little bit about the Lifetime Grand Prix. Like, where do you want to take your career as a cyclist, and what do you want to do as a human being outside of cycling?
The cycling thing is a good question. I feel like I'm trying to figure that out like every week and every month. I'm leaving my options open for next year. So I think Texas Roadhouse wants me to stick around and race crits with them next year. So I think that's an option for 2024. And then I'm shooting pretty hard for the Lifetime Series to try to maybe get into that. So I'm going to try to do the Lifetime Series, and then if I get in through that application, at that point I'll have to start making some decisions about what I'm going to be doing for next year. But yeah, like I already said, I think those longer distance races just suit me and my physiology and my training a lot better. So I'm not bad at crit racing. I'm just like, I'm not going to beat Justin Williams in a sprint. And most of these races come down to a sprint. And so in the few races where I actually get to race the way, in the few crits that actually suit me, I do well, like Snake Alley and there's another one that weekend, the Quick Star crit. Basically any crit that has a hill, like Crybaby Hill is always a big one for me. Unfortunately, I didn't get the race because of the wrist, but those are like the few crits that I'm really excited about. Whereas if I were to do the gravel route, I might, you know, I feel like every one of those races kind of suits me better than a lot of these crits. So it's not that like, I don't know. I think I'm just trying to figure out where can I use my skills the best to get the best results. And so I'm starting to think that maybe that's on the gravel. But we'll see. I've only been racing crits for a couple years, and Roadhouse does have a very strong belief in me, and they believe that I can keep getting better and better. So that's nice to like have that support from some experienced guys who've been racing crits for a long time. To like, they think they think that I have what it takes to be a good crit racer. So that's good and reassuring. But I don't really know. But as far as like life goes, I mean, first and foremost, I think I live my life pretty strongly with, I just want to glorify God through all that I do. Whether that's bike racing or being a dad or being a husband or being a coach, with every aspect of my life, I just want that to be God honoring. So, I mean, yeah, I've been a Christian since high school, and that's just been a huge part of my life. And and I wouldn't like, I mean, I think it's the best part of my life. I think, it gives me the confidence to do things like if I break my wrist and I miss half of the most important part of the season, I'm not like crumbling because my identity isn't totally wrapped up in cycling. It's totally wrapped up in my faith. And so I think that's definitely the biggest part of my life. And kind of everything I do is through the lens of that. But yeah, I mean, I really want to be a good dad now that I've got the 2-year-old daughter. That's life changing for the better. If that means like I don't go as high in bike racing as I might have, which I don't think that that's even going to happen. Like I don't think having a kid is affecting my bike racing. If anything, it's just helping because it's like life is more enjoyable with a kid than without a kid. But I really want to be a good dad. I don't want, I find myself thinking a lot of like, I don't want my daughter to grow up wishing I didn't race my bike more. If that's going to be what happens, then I will have, regret. I will regret like racing bike too much because I want to spend time with her and be a good influence on her and love her well. But I mean, at this in the same line though, I think bike racing is and coaching has given me the opportunity to be at home even more with her. Like if I had a normal job, I'd be gone like every weekday, working. But with cycling, I'm home a lot of the days of the week. I'm going out for training, but like in the mornings and in the evenings and on the days I'm off, I get to do a lot at home with my family. And so I'm super grateful that I've got the flexibility to be that kind of dad that's kind of at home with my kid a lot. Yeah. And then, I mean, Ignition Coach Co is growing. And I think that's a huge part right now is it's still in the growing phase. Me and Dylan started that about 2.5 years ago. And so we're just constantly looking of like, how do we keep growing it? How do we keep just being a really good coaching company? And so that's like a continual process as well. We've got 15 coaches spread out across the country and 2 in Europe. So I mean, those coaches are a lot of like why the company is so exciting. When we started the company, I didn't realize like how fun it would be to work with other coaches because when you coach by yourself, you just kind of get into this system of working with you and your athletes. But yeah, the funnest part about Ignition has been working with the other coaches and seeing them get excited about coaching. And there's a lot of, I mean, most of the coaches who work for Ignition are very involved and like invested in the company of like, they want to see the company grow and thrive as well, which is pretty exciting to have that kind of support from all the coaches. So, yeah.
Do you see more gravel athletes coming into structured training and seeking out coaching?
Yeah, I think that's a huge market right now. Mainly just because that's where a lot of the excitement is right now. So yeah, I just think that that's what I don't know. It's just like people want to go out and do these adventures on their bikes, and that's kind of what gravel racing offers. So a lot more people are willing to travel to go do like a big BWR, a big unbound race versus to travel all this way for a crit, or something like that. So you see a lot more people targeting those big gravel races, and the good thing for a coaching company is those gravel races require a lot more training because they're usually really long, and uh, it's like they require more training, but it's like this doesn't sound bad, but like it's very less strategic. Like if you're trying to do the unbound 200, literally you need to know how to ride for that long, and you need to know how to eat while you ride for that long. And if you do those two things, you'll probably have a pretty good race at unbound. Whereas if you're trying to race at crits are way more dynamic of like, you got to be able to handle your bike, and you got to be able to like prepare ahead of time. Like how you eat leading up to that 1 hour crit is really important. And then the whole race dynamic with teammates, like it's way harder to like train somebody for a crit than for an unbound 200, because unbound 200 is like, well, you just got to go ride your bike for hours and hours and hours. But I mean, we get all of that. We get the full spectrum. And our kind of what we do at Ignition is we try to like do our best at pairing athletes with a coach that fits them. So all of our coaches race pretty high level, and so we've got gravel racers, cross racers, mountain bikers, roadies, crit racers, track cyclists. So if somebody signs up and they want to do gravel, then we're going to try to pair them up with one of our more gravel experienced coaches. If somebody signs up for mountain biking coaching, then we're going to pair them up with somebody who's got a lot of experience mountain biking. And then a lot of times that's even better too, because then a lot of times our coaches have done some of the races that the athletes have done and can offer specific advice on, oh, I've done that race and you need to know about this, this, and that, during that race. So we try to do a really good job at like making that initial connection of athlete to coach with as much, in common as possible, so that it makes the coaching relationship even better.
And you produce content for YouTube as well, and you have your own unique style. How did you kind of define that style and arrive at, yeah, these are the kind of videos that Drew makes?
Um, well, some of my videos are straight up ripoffs of Dylan's, because like I really respect his style of videos. But unfortunately, when I do Dylan's videos, they tank. Like they just don't do good. Like there's obviously a lot of people who want to hear about science-based training advice, but for some reason, when I try to do it, nobody watches those videos. So I've landed on this other style of video where I race with a GoPro and I just kind of throw up my thoughts. And I've come to find out that a lot of those, what I think are just thoughts, are actually like really good coaching advice. And so a lot of people like have come up to me at races and have said, "Oh man, I like really love your videos. They're super helpful. I've learned a lot about racing by watching them." And I don't know if, I mean, I guess a little bit of me was trying to do that like through those. So basically what I do is I put up the race video and I trim it down to like a 1 hour crit into maybe 15 minutes. But then I put in when something happens, I try to explain kind of what is happening and why it's happening through words on the screen. So you don't hear my voice in these videos, which I really like because I hate being like on video. So being able to do it without me getting recorded is way easier. And so yeah, I guess those videos have been more helpful than I thought. And those videos get way more views than the other videos I do. So I'm trying to go more in that route. But it sucks when you break your wrist and then you don't race for 10 weeks, because then like I don't have any footage to do those videos on. So I've been mounting GoPros on my teammates' bikes and doing it that way for the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I'm super excited to do some of these races this fall, because I think some of these bigger gravel races will make for some very good videos, because when you race for 6 hours, a lot more happens. And so you just have to make sure you get the good stuff on video, because unfortunately the GoPro battery doesn't last 6 hours. So I
Right.
have to like reach down and press the button whenever I think something exciting is going to happen. Whereas in a crit, I can record the whole thing because the battery lasts throughout the whole crit, so I don't have to worry about it. I just turn it on and race. Um, but yeah, I really enjoy that style of editing. It's I don't know, it's exciting to see all of the people watching the videos and stuff, and to see it actually kind of growing.
Yeah, they're great. I enjoy watching them. I like all the tips. And then conversely, also when you see videos from people, and in particular, there are a number of people now who make content where they're in the middle of the race and like they've got the GoPro or what, like they're in a pack and they're like talking to the GoPro. I always wonder, what is it like to be, I mean, I'm not a pro racer, but if you're like in the pro field and Vegan Cyclist is there talking to himself to his camera while you're in the middle of the front group, I should probably have him on.
Yeah.
But like, what is that experience like for people around you? It does seem to be a very
Yeah.
common thing now.
Yeah. It kind of irks me. Because they're so focused on like recording themselves that they're going to do that in the middle of a race. I like that mine is a little bit more subtle. Like all I have to do is reach down and press the button. But I've been in, like when I did the BWR California this year, I was in a group with Jeremiah Bishop, and he's literally, we're in a group and I'm like freaking out because I'm like, oh, we might not catch the front group. And I look over and he's like talking to his phone. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we got to catch the front group. Like, stop YouTubing right now. Like there's a time and a place, and I don't know. I just think, I don't know. I think it's silly, but I mean, I get it. I'm trying to do the same exact thing, just in a different way of like,
Yeah.
there's this huge opportunity. YouTube is a huge opportunity. And all you have to do is look at Dillon to know, like, this is what like gets me going, is like on paper, me and Dillon are like, he'll say it himself. Well, right now he's a little bit faster than me, but on paper we're basically like the same athlete, like same height, same weight, same FTP. We both suck at sprinting. I mean, obviously we have some like strengths and weaknesses, but like on paper we're like very, very similar. Um, and yet look at like how successful he is, and look, like, I'm not saying I'm not successful, but there's potential. And I think the difference between him and I is his YouTube channel. And so him with that YouTube channel has just opened up so many more opportunities. And now I'm just thinking like, I got to figure out how to do that. So, I'm figuring it out. I don't have it totally figured out yet, but it's definitely growing pretty quick, which is nice. And I'm already starting to see some of the leverage that it's helping to like open up doors and stuff. So, the days of like just going out and smashing bike racing and getting sponsors are quickly coming to a close. So if you don't have some kind of like pull with content, it's hard. It's getting harder and harder to find sponsors or teams and support. And that's just the state of where bike race sponsorship is right now.
Is there anything new or different that you've wanted to try or experiment with when it comes to content, or you just want to go deeper with kind of the GoPro insights about what's going on inside of the race?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of have those videos figured out, like race with the GoPro, get as much footage of the race as possible, and then do the editing of like putting in the slides. So that's pretty straightforward, and I like doing that. Yeah, I'm like, I mean, like the coach in me is always thinking about, how do I create original training, teaching content? So basically what Dillon does with his channel, but how do I do it in a way that is totally different from Dillon, but still teaches people about training? Because there's all kinds of like really neat topics within cycling and endurance training that I find myself like reading books about and constantly thinking about. And I'm like, I want to teach people about this cool stuff. Like I got super amped up on this idea of confidence a couple months ago. I read like a couple chapters on confidence, and then ended up doing all this research on confidence, which is a lot more like psychology based than it is physiology based, which is a big difference between his videos and
Sure.
mine. But how do I like do it in a way that's not just copying him? Last week, a guy that listens to the Bonk Bros, he's like one of our like weekly listeners. We don't know his name, but he goes by Playing Bikes. He totally called me out on this on Instagram. He like screenshotted one of my videos and then he put at the top the Dylan Johnson starter pack, only 1995, and then he pointed at all the stuff, and it was like basically he was just making fun of me because I copied exactly what Dylan does. So part of me is like, how can I do it, but do it in my own original way? But I mean, Dylan's like, they're so good. It's like I'm like the Burger King of videos. Like Burger King doesn't do any research; they just do whatever McDonald's does because McDonald's has already done all the homework. Uh, so I don't know. I'm always thinking about that. Like how can I teach people about coaching and training in my own way? And I haven't figured it out. I have no idea.
Right. You'll be the flame grilled version.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're the Whopper.
Hey, I'm curious. How did you start the pod? I don't know a lot about the podcast or you, to be quite honest. Like, how'd you start this
Yeah.
podcast? Like what I love. I'm not gonna lie. Like when you reached out to me, all I had to do was look at the title, Choose the Hard Way, and I was sold. I was like, what a good title. So I didn't even need to like know a lot about you or anything. The title had me sold. I was like, that's such a good title. So I don't know. Just out of my own curiosity and maybe for some listeners, like, how did this start and what's the mission and what is it?
Yeah, totally. I Choose the Hard Way is a podcast about how hard things build stronger humans and how hard things are the most fun things in life.
Mm.
And I started my career as a journalist. So I spent about a decade working exclusively as a freelance journalist for outlets like Rolling Stone, the Los Angeles Times, Outside Magazine, dozens of other publications. And I wrote about many of the world's most interesting and highest performing people. So I've interviewed everybody from Samuel L. Jackson, Daft Punk, Kanye West, dozens of
What?
other,
You're not
famous
just some dude doing
athletes,
a
celebrities,
podcast. I mean, you're
musicians.
like, wow,
No, man. No,
that's
I like
legit.
this is yeah, I used to get paid I used to get paid a lot of money to interview people and write about them. And then I met a former Navy SEAL who started a company called TRX. I
Mm.
wrote about them. I wrote one of the first stories that was ever published about TRX in Outside Magazine, I think 2005. Eventually, he persuaded me to leave journalism to go work for him. I became the head of content there. And then after that, I ended up going to Strava, where I was a communications executive. I spent 7 years there. And helped the company grow to more than 100 million users, reach profitability. I ran a team that was in 6 different countries, 4 different continents, oversaw media relations, public relations, public policy, a bunch of other stuff. And while I was at Strava, I loved what I was doing. And I also really missed specifically the part of journalism where I got to satisfy my curiosity around just like meeting people who did amazing things that I wanted to learn more about. So I started this podcast almost 6 years ago now because I just really felt like something very specific about that aspect of journalism was really missing from what I was doing. Like I love my job there. I love being an executive, but I was more in the background. I felt like I was more of a bass player and what
Mm.
I really am is more of like a lead singer or lead guitarist, like shredding.
Yeah.
And I think I loved like both with Strava and TRX. Part of what I loved about them was I felt very deep mission alignment with what those companies did and the way in which they help make people's lives better. With TRX, it was, democratizing high, world class, high performance training for everybody. And we also did a lot of work with the military. And I knew that the work that we were doing on, like specifically, like we launched a tactical suspension trainer that became standard issue in the Marine Corps. It was used in every branch of service, and I knew that special operations units in every branch were using it. So it felt good to know that something I was making was helping the general public. It was also helping people downrange hopefully stay safer because they were more mission fit and mission ready. So, and with Strava, just helping people stay motivated and inspired and connected to other people doing things that help make them healthier and feel better was really important to me. And with the podcast, I just wanted to help more people just reach beyond their sense of what might be possible in their life, and to realize that people who do amazing things deal with all the same bullshit as everyone else. They're just applying themselves in a slightly different way. I mean, what I've realized over time is no matter what people have, no matter how good they are at something, no matter how much money they have, it's all the same set of problems, just with different stuff, to really boil it down. So I think a lot of people have a very limited sense of who they are and what might be possible for them in life. And my aspiration with this podcast is that someone might find this and think there's more possible for me than I might have thought. And that's why this podcast, it's not really about here are 5 things you can go do. I just like to hear stories from people. I like to share them with my listeners, and I hope that it makes people's day better and inspires them to be, a better person for their family, at work, to try something new and different, and just like to take the risk of doing something that feels daunting, because being comfortable does not usually add up to happiness.
That's good, man. I remember watching that.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that documentary about the free solo? I forget the guy, Alex something.
Yeah.
Alex
Honnold.
You've probably interviewed him.
I haven't interviewed Alex.
Okay.
No, I haven't.
But
no, I've had Adrian Ballinger on here though, who's climbed K2 and Everest without oxygen.
Oh, dang. But when I watched that documentary for the first time, I don't know anything about climbing. So I'm like sweating. I'm like watching that documentary and like sweating.
Right.
Because of how like nerve wracking it is. But on his way to the climb, he's talking to the camera and he's talking about like his girlfriend and how she's a lot more of like, happy, comfy. And I remember him saying, nobody's ever accomplished anything being happy and comfy. And I was like, that sounds really harsh, but it's so true. And that stuck with me for a long time. I'm like, yeah, nobody accomplished anything being happy and comfy. Maybe not happy. He said something like cozy and comfy or something, but
yeah, I think people have to find what, they have to figure out what is their frame of reference for what they believe might bring them joy and happiness. I also think people's sense of what that might be is often, there's no correlation with that and the things that actually will make them happy and bring them joy. I think that people often think about achieving things, they think about stuff, and it might be different for everyone. I think what I've realized over time in my life is the thing that actually brings me personally the most happiness and joy is the ability to be present to whatever is happening in my life in that moment, whether it's something really painful, something that does actually bring me happiness or joy, or it's something really mundane. And, that's something I think about a lot. And like with training, for example, for me, if I can go out and do a training ride, or I can wash my dishes or whatever with no music on, no podcasts, and I'm just present in that moment doing whatever the thing is, that's when I feel like I'm in my highest state.
Yeah, there's this interesting concept called the arrival fallacy, which is like we make these big goals of like, I want to win the world championships. And when you actually do that and win the world championships, you actually go into this huge like phase of depression because you don't know what to do after you've accomplished that big goal. And it's like this huge eye-opening experience of, it's not the goal of like winning the world championships that actually makes us happy. It's the process of getting there, the everyday grind. And a lot of people, I find myself thinking about that a lot, of like, people don't realize how enjoyable that process is, of just grinding it out every day. Having those goals is definitely good. You need those, but winning races isn't the end all be all for sure.
Yeah. I think having that mindset and being able to access it, I think is a very slippery thing for almost everyone. So I think being in that, having a process orientation and being fully present to what is actually happening, I think is among the most challenging states that you can create in life. And I think it's like a very worthy goal to try to find whatever it is for each of us that enables us to access that. And also, you know, to be ambitious and to reach beyond what we think might be possible and to do big things. But as you said, it's not about like getting to the big thing. It's about what's the community you build? How do you love and support the people around you? How do you mentor other people? How do you lift up people who have less? How do you take care of other people? I think those are all incredibly important things to do. And it's not just about, you know, do I have 2 million TikTok followers or do, you know, hundreds of thousands of people listen to this podcast or whatever? Like, you don't really have control over that. You do have control over how do you treat people around you? You know, how do you help people who need help? How do you help yourself? Are you kind to yourself? Are you kind to other people? And, you know, those can be challenging things to do, but I think they're really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Learn more about Ignition Coach Co. and Drew on Instagram at Dizzle_Dillman. Please help more people find this podcast. To do that, just hit subscribe and please rate the show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and share this episode with a friend. Go to choosethehardway.com to sign up for the newsletter. And if there's someone you think would make a great guest, just DM me at HardwayPod and let me know. Choose the Hard Way is a Big Truck production. Anthony Palmer at Palm Tree Podco is the producer and editor, and Emily Miles is head of digital and marketing. Hecla Projects founder Jeffrey Nebellini is the world-renowned designer behind our brand identity and the iconic Choose the Hard Way logo. The content for this show is created by me, Andrew Vance.